This shit crank.
What it do, Black people? Welcome back to another episode of the Melanin 360 podcast. It's your girl, Jeray, and we're back for another episode. And y'all, it is Women's History Month. All right. And so, first, I want to take this time to uplift and pay my respects to the amazing women who raised me and made me the woman that you see or hear before you today. I consider them my guardian angels. They look out for me. They're with me all the time. And I just couldn't let this episode go by without saying something about them. So, um, the first woman in my angel squad, as I like to call them, is my Gammy. That is my mom's mom. I love her to the heavens. Um, she gave me my love for books. Okay. Like I've been reading since probably before I could talk. And she gave me that and just the desire to soak up knowledge. And she always told me to make sure you know a little bit about everything. And I've taken that piece of advice with me throughout life, and it has served me well. So I just want to thank her for that. Also, I want to acknowledge my grandma Josie, who actually passed away 2 years ago. Her birthday, she would have been 97 on Saturday. So I just want to, shout her out. My grandma Josie was the quintessential old school grandma. The Sunday dinners at her house, turn everything off and don't sit by the windows when it's thundering outside. Plastic on the furniture, all of that stuff. That was my grandma Josie. She was a baker. She could cook her buns off, fish every Friday. Okay, so definitely want to send a shout out to her. And last but certainly not least, my mommy. Um, she taught me everything that I know. How to be a woman, how to be a nurturer. She gave me my love for music. I can't do anything without music, and neither could my mom. Whether it's cooking, cleaning, driving, whatever, I have to have music on. And and most importantly, she gave me life. So I miss her every day, but I want to thank her for making me the woman that I am, and just instilling in me all of the things that I still use today. Look at me, I'm getting tongue tied about my mama, y'all. But I just want to say happy Women's Month to the three of you. And I know the last couple years been a lot. I'm gonna chill out. Y'all been working overtime, keeping me safe, but I'm gonna be good. So y'all can relax. But anyway, we got that out of the way. So in the spirit of Women's History Month, I also want to say that it's not just about recognizing women from the past and the great things that they have done, but I think it's also good to celebrate what we're doing now and where we're going. And so I want to uplift all of my sisters out there. And I want to tell you all to uplift your fellow queens, help them adjust their crowns instead of tearing them down. And to the fellas out there, take some time to appreciate and show some extra love to the women in your lives, your mamas, your sisters, your daughters, your grandmothers, And while Women's History Month and Women's Month is about all women, this is the Melanin 360 podcast. And so y'all know I'm going to use my platform to intentionally hold space for Black women. Okay. So if you've been listening long enough, you already know what this show gonna be about. All right. So don't act surprised. So from your favorite podcast to you all out there, happy Women's Month. So for those of you all that are watching this video on YouTube, which you should be, follow me on YouTube at Melanin360. Just go in the search bar, you can find me there. You will see that I have a guest with me today. And I am joined by this amazing queen, Miss Shara Smith. Hi, Shara.
Hey,
How you doing? Thanks for coming.
thank you for having me. And first of all, that was such a beautiful tribute to your mom, to your grandmom, to your ancestors. And so thank you for sharing that with us. I think that is
Oh,
so beautiful to acknowledge our ancestors as much as we can, right? That's how we really do keep their spirit alive. And I think that there's a lot of cultures who really do continue to have the conversations about our ancestors in a way that a lot of Americans don't. So when I hear people like you who take that moment to do that, it really does touch my heart. So thank you for sharing that with us.
oh, thank you. That was so sweet. Thank you. Well, Shara, why don't you tell the people a little bit about yourself?
Oh man, this is always like the hard question, right?
Right, it's like I
Especially
don't want
because
to
it's
toot my
just
own
like,
horn,
what
but
do I
indeed.
do? What do I do? Well, first and foremost, I am a single mom of two beautiful girls. I have a 21-year-old and I have an 11-year-old now. And I am a daughter. I'm a niece. I am a great cousin, a wonderful friend. But on top of that, in spaces where I've met you before, I have been a proud member of the labor movement for well over a decade now, in which I've done organizing, a lot of education development and training in that space. So in that space, I consider myself a labor educator, but I really thrive in spaces where I'm able to really, really exist in things that I'm passionate about, which is racial justice, equity, which is pushing women's rights. All of those things I'm able to do in my own business, which is Gateways to Greatness. So I do a lot of coaching. I do a lot of speaking engagements on those topics. I also do curriculum design. So all of that, right? So by training, I am an organizational development consultant. So in that lane, I do all of that.
Good. Well, God, we've been colleagues for a long time. A
Yeah.
very long time. And, just again, everybody, I have had a front row seat to see Shara, doing her thing, whether it's training or speaking. And so when I decided to discuss this topic, and I was like, who can I have on this show? And I was like, the light bulb went off. And I was
Yeah.
like, Shar would be perfect for this. So we do work together in our day jobs. Unfortunately, at this time, Melanin 360 is not paying all the bills. But if y'all keep listening, one day I won't have to go to that 9 to 5. But,
Okay.
you know,
Okay.
but I trucked it on, up to Shar's office. And I was like, hey, girl, would you mind being on my show? And she was like, sure. And see, how we stick together, that's what we do. We
It's
uplift each
simple.
other and all of that stuff. And what Shara did not tell you is that she also at one time was a podcaster, and I'm hoping that we can get her back into the community again with the podcasting. But she had a really great show. I loved it. I used to listen all of the time. So I'm gonna be working on that. That'll be my goal, to get you back into the podcast family.
You know what? The time may be approaching very near. We'll see. We'll see. If I
Good.
come back, I have to bring back my co-host. Shout out to Shakina Givens, who is my beautiful co-host based out of Atlanta. So yeah, we'll see if we can get some things going. Right? Maybe some partnership going on. Maybe a couple special partnerships throughout the year. You
Hey,
know.
listen, I'm with it. I am with it. Listen, the more dope ass black women that can get together and do great things, I am here for it. So
I,
bring it.
I, yes, yes.
So you guys, y'all know that it is my favorite time of the show. And this is what I like to call my little icebreaker. I have every guest that comes on this show to give me their or one of their favorite 90s R&B or hip hop songs. And like I say on every episode, I really just feel like the 90s was just the peak of blackness. The 90s had the best music, the best movies, the best urban wear, the best culture. Like I just soak it up. And I'm so blessed to have been a teenager in the 90s and been in college in the late 90s. Like, no better time. I don't care what anybody says. If you were not in college when Juvenile was saying, taking over for the 99 in the 2000, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know. It was a time to be alive and there was no cell phones, and I'm going to just keep it at that. There was no video proof, but but yeah, I asked everybody that question. So if you could let us know, what's on your playlist. What are you thinking about this week of
Woo!
music?
Listen, this was a struggle, right? So I'm just a tad bit younger, right? So in the 90s, it was really like my elementary years. So it was like not quite being able to fully understand like some of the music, but I cheated, right? Because I thought about three songs came to mind. So I'm gonna tell you that right now. I cheated. I'm
Okay.
sorry. But the first song that came to mind was when I think about Drew Hill. I mean,
Yes.
anything Drew Hill. I mean, can you tell me what you will come on? As soon as you think about Drew Hill, you start doing this. But the
Yes.
specific song that was my favorite song that inspired my first tattoo was "Beauty Is Her Name." So that
Okay.
song is such a special song to me. But I'm just going to stick to two. The second song that really stuck to me was God's Property. Like I know it's not an R&B or rap song, but God's Property, specifically Stomp. One, because at one point I had moved with my dad and my stepmom, and I was not allowed to listen to secular music. So Stomp was like close enough, like it was
Mm-hmm.
straddling the line where it had a little beat to it. But also because it was like it brought me back to, when I think about Stomp, it brings me back to like a point in my childhood where I really started to find my tribe. And I say that because my teacher at the time had started this gospel group, and we were in the fifth grade, and the group was full of kids who were Christian, right, or who parents were Christian, who had an interest in singing and knowing the gospel. And at that time, I was, in that phase. But we were almost like the outsiders, right? And I never felt like I was like one of the cool kids, the popular kids. But finally, I had a group who understood me, right? We were smart. We were the nerdy kids, whatever you want to call it. But for the first time, I really felt like this is my tribe. Like I have a whole clique. I just don't have like one friend. And we were in there dancing and singing the stomp. And like we did a performance to stomp. So like that song will always hold a special place in my heart.
You know what? I love that because I remember when God's Property first came out, and honey, the olds was up in arms. What is this? This is not glorifying the Lord. What is going on? This the devil's music. And
Yes.
I grew up in a Southern Baptist church,
Okay.
basically an all black congregation with a white pastor.
Whoa. Whoa.
Okay. So what happened was, just to give a little bit of background, the church was originally predominantly white, obviously before I was born.
Okay.
And the neighborhood changed throughout the late 80s and into the early 90s. The neighborhood changed, white flight, all of that.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
pastor didn't leave. And so the congregation became more black. The younger black people that were there started to have children, like my parents. Like my parents were married in
Mm-hmm.
that church and whatever. So then we started to get older, and they were very strict. Like a drum in the church, girl, they would have thought we'd have set on fire. Like it was, they were not doing any of that. And so when I would go to like my friends' churches that went to like AME churches and stuff like that,
Mhm.
and I would be amazed, like, oh, y'all get to clap your hands, you get to stand up,
Wow.
like, because I we didn't do any of that. And so when Kirk Franklin came out with God's Property, and I remember my parents bought me the CD, I was
Mhm.
like, I can like praise God and get jiggy with it a little bit. Like, what is going on? Like, I love it. And my parents never stopped me from doing that, but at church it was like, nope, you don't do that. You
Yes.
don't listen to it. Kurt Franklin, bad, devil, no. Like that's what it was,
Right.
you know.
Right.
So
And
yeah,
it's still
I
that way, right? He still gets so much flack. But the
he
truth be told,
does.
he
And I'm
has,
like, but why?
right. He has brought a lot of people to God in his own special way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it may,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, it may not be the traditional kind of ways of thinking about gospel and, ministering, but he has a strong ministry.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
You know. And you know what? And you actually go down in history as the first person on the show that has picked a gospel song for their 90s song. So
Hey!
that's you. You have set a record.
Yes. Okay.
So luckily this week I ain't picked nothing too bad. Okay. But um like I said, sometimes the songs I pick have something to do with the episode. Sometimes it's just whatever is on my spirit that week. But
Hmm.
this week, I went with Exhale by Whitney Houston on the
Mm.
Waiting to Exhale soundtrack. Came out in 1995.
Hmm.
And I remember I went with my mom to see this movie. I probably should not have been seeing this movie at 14,
I'm
but
about to say,
back then parents was a little bit less,
yeah,
it just
it was
was like,
different. It was a
yeah,
different
me and
time.
my mom saw it at the movies, but I picked this because that soundtrack is one of my favorite soundtracks. It's full
Mm.
of women
Mm.
about a movie full of phenomenal women,
Mm.
and all of the women were actually handpicked by Whitney Houston
I did not know
to
that.
be on the soundtrack, and I mean, yes, Babyface produced it, but she actually had a hand in picking who was going to be on the soundtrack.
Oh,
And so when you
wow.
think of all the heavy hitters that are on there, you have TLC, you have Shantae Moore, SWV, Shaka Khan, right? CC Winans. Like you just have so many greats that were on this album that I was like, this is like the quintessential Women's Month album. Like, it doesn't get any better than that. So that's my song. And plus, I love Exhale. Like, who doesn't love that song by Whitney Houston?
It is such a
It's
beautiful
so
song.
good.
I learned something new. I did not know that. Like,
Hmm.
and honestly, I feel like I'm gonna turn it on when we get off this podcast. Like, because it is a beautiful album. It was so well done. Like anything, Babyface, right? But Whitney Houston, and know that she handpicked everybody. Like, that's something I did
Hmm.
not know. Thank you. Yeah.
It's well, I try to come with a little bit of knowledge. See, my gammy told me learn a little bit about everything. See, I be knowing facts. I'm the person in the family where people will call me and be like, Jeray, do you know so and so, so and so? And I mean, I be knowing. I be knowing. I do. I'm the original phone a friend. But
I love it. Shout out to Who Wants to Be a Millionaire because
so we're going to get down to why we're here. And today, I wanted to bring you on so we could talk about um, the strong Black woman narrative, right? And how
Mhm.
we feel about it, what we think about it, how we think it's affecting women, where it came from, and what
Mm,
that means generationally.
mm.
So, I just want to kind of pick your brain about it. So, what does being a strong Black woman mean to you? And what are the positive and the negative sides of that?
Whew. Okay. It's a loaded question, right?
Yes, lots
Super
to unpack.
loaded. You came out the gate with a loaded question at that. So, I think like the word that comes to mind is conundrum. Um, And not because I just want to use a big word, right? You know, I have a master's degree I'm still paying off. So every now and then I have to put that degree to work, but conundrum. And that's because like when I think about like what it means to be a strong black woman, I think about like how true it is that multiple things can be factual simultaneously, right? Like so when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to like the whole idea of being a strong black woman, to me, there's a certain like reverence I hold for it while simultaneously holding like just like disgust, right? Like it's like part beautiful but also burdensome, right? And it's also like it's something that like a lot of women aspire to be, but like cis girl is a trap,
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that's why I'm like, it's a conundrum because it is positive and negative. And there is like really kind of no in between. And I know that we're going to unpack this a little bit more, but for me, it's something that I'm comfortable at this point in my life with both honoring what it means to be a strong black woman, but also something that I have learned and am still learning how to question.
Yeah, I'm kind of in that same vein. Again, like you said, it is an extremely loaded question. Um, to me, it means being able to push through a lot of the things that gets thrown our way and still being able to excel and produce greatness.
Mm,
But in the same vein, having to push through the things that are thrown our way and being expected to excel and produce
mm,
greatness. You know what I mean? Um,
mm.
it also, to me, like the downside also is that everybody depends on that, whether it's your children, your spouse, your job, society. I mean, look at the black woman's vote in America. Like people just depend on it. Like it's just gonna
Mhm,
be there. Um,
mm.
they expect it. And then the one time that we can't or we don't or we choose ourselves, then it's everybody's like, wait, what? You didn't
Mhm, mhm,
you didn't produce, you didn't do this, you didn't do this thing. And because black women have so much pride, we don't like to hear that.
yeah,
So we just keep going.
yeah.
And it's really kind of funny that we're doing this episode now this weekend. I actually binge watched the entire first season of Underground. I
Okay,
had
I've
never
never
seen
seen it.
Underground before.
Okay.
Um, but if you want to talk about strong black women, honey,
Okay.
okay, like, and that kind of goes into something that we'll talk about later, like how it's generational and where
Mm.
this narrative came from. But, I also think that as black women, we do such a good job of of what we do and making it look so easy
Oh
that people
yeah.
think it's easy and
Oh
it's
yeah.
really not.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
they don't see what we deal with and what we go through behind closed doors, or when everybody else is asleep, or when we're,
Hmm.
in the car driving home,
Hmm.
having to come down from all of that. No one else sees it, but we make it look good.
Yeah. 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 I definitely have that experience. I think a lot of times, like I said, and I one the first way I always identify myself as I'm a mom. That's
Hmm.
a core part of my identity. I've been a mom since I had my first daughter when I was 17. I was young, right? So it's like at this point, being a mom is really all I know. Right? It's like I've been a mom longer than I've been almost like anything, else besides a daughter. And, a lot of times people are like, oh my gosh, like you do so much, and you're raising two kids on your own. Like, how do you do it? Like, and it's the same thing. It's like you don't know. Like I may make this look easy, but you do not know the tears I've cried. You don't know the
Hmm.
sleepless nights I've had. Team no sleep is not a beautiful thing when you actually are existing in team no sleep. You don't know the bills that have been unpaid.
Hmm.
So it's almost like you are expected, to actually just exist in that world without any issues when you're a black woman.
Yeah, so I am not a mom, but I will say that it wasn't until I got older that I really understood my mother and
Mm,
what she went through. And so a lot of the things that you just said um, made a lot more sense to me once I hit my 20s and 30s. Things that I didn't really understand, or why she would look certain ways, or at the end of the day, she would look so drained, or
mm,
why certain things seemed to bother her so much that I was just kind of like, oh, it doesn't really matter. Um, it really hit me. So again, I thought about her a lot when
mm,
I was coming up with the idea to
mm.
do this show. um you know Being an older sister, I always say I'm like the manager of the family. Even when it came down to dealing with my dad and his illness before he passed. And I have a younger brother. I'm the oldest of all of my cousins. There is that, oh, Jeray got it. She's going to handle it. And no one ever really stops to think about what it takes for me to handle it.
Right,
And it's a blessing and a curse. I'm blessed because my family felt like they can entrust me with that kind of responsibility, right?
right.
But at the same time, it's tiring. At the same time, it's draining. Um, and at the same time, it's just like you just sometimes want somebody else to come in and just say, "Let me carry that for you. Let me get that for you."
Absolutely.
Um, but on the flip side, and we'll talk about this more later, do we allow people to do that for us? Do we feel like we can let go when people come in and say, "Let me, can I?" Because a lot of times we get real defensive, or we get real, I'm
Yes,
so used to carrying this stuff and doing these things.
yes.
I don't need anybody's help.
Correct. That is I feel like that has been a lot of, man, I say we not talk about it later, we talk about it now, right? It's unfolding because what you're saying is so powerful. And, part of the work that I do has been coaching Black women within the past 2 years. I do have my coaching certification, and I'm working with this one particular group in Minnesota. And I am learning everybody in this group, this cohort, they're all older than me, right? So these are women who are in their 50s and 60s. These are women who come with such beautiful experiences. Some of them, one woman, for example, literally grew up in Mississippi, right? Like deep South.
Mm-hmm.
Like have in her childhood have seen lynching, like, deep experiences. So one, it resonated with me when you said you have a different perspective now that you're older in terms of what your mom went through, because I'm the same way. I have such a reverence for women who are older than me, in a way that I'm like, gosh, you come with so much. You're already bringing so much. Not only you bringing those experiences, but I also know you're bringing all of the burdens that you had to carry that you were never allowed to set down, because you existed in a generation that didn't allow you to, right? And our generation and younger, we are privileged in the way that we are allowed to kind of set some things down, right? So I have a reverence for women who are older in a way that I didn't when I was younger, right? Because when you're your teens and your 20s, it's all about you. Oh, parents just don't understand, and we
Mm-hmm.
don't see, oh, my mom, she's yelling, but mom is overstimulated, overworked, and overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's deeper than that, right?
Yes.
And so for me, it's like, I think people don't understand, like, how deep it really goes in terms of how women show up in the world for the people around them, but how they are not able to show up for themselves. And this has been generation after generation.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. And I was just going to say, I think from all the way back to slavery, it's embedded in our DNA. I
Oh yeah.
truly believe that. You
Oh
know, and again, I bring up when I was watching the series this weekend. And I mean, we've all seen plenty of movies and shows about slavery and what happens. We've read it in the history books. But watching it again, I was actually working on my notes for the show while
okay.
watching it. And, just seeing the babies ripped from their mothers, right? The families being destroyed. But you know what? You got to go on. You got to keep
Oh,
working. You got to keep persevering. Um, Seeing their children beaten, seeing them mistreated, not having food for their children, and then leaving from slavery, but going on into, the decades to come after that, when we were treated like second class citizens or continue to be treated like second class citizens. All of the things that our grandmothers and great grandmothers and great great grandmothers had to do to keep the family afloat,
mm-hmm.
and a lot of times it went without recognition. And I mean, this is no shade to the, our male ancestors, but the focus was very much on the man goes out, he works, he brings home the money, keeps a roof over the head, and that's awesome because we needed that. And I'm
Yeah.
not diminishing that at all. We would not survive. We could not have survived if we didn't have that. But what the women had to go through is talked about less, I
Mm-hmm.
believe, in history. You
Mm-hmm.
know, what we had to deal with child rearing and educating our children because they couldn't go to school, and keeping the family intact, finding food to put on the table and trying to make it
Oh.
look different so everybody could eat it. And if there wasn't enough food, you know what? Mama didn't eat. The babies had to eat. Daddy had to eat because daddy had to go out and work. So he needed his energy and his strength to do that. So mama would take the scraps, right?
Mm.
But you know what? We kept going.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't any time to stop, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I just think about that and how a lot of that still goes on today. It might look different because, like you said, we're more privileged now. We have more rights. We are able to do things that our ancestors couldn't do. But I think that at its core, that still very much is a thing.
Oh yeah.
Um, you
Oh yeah.
know, and I think that, like I said, it just looks different from generation to generation. Um, but I also think that that narrative stays alive because our mothers mimicked what their mothers did, and we
Yes.
mimicked what our mothers did.
Right.
And
It was all
so,
with you. Mm-hmm.
exactly. And so, what I wanted to ask you was, how do you think this has manifested in your relationship with your daughters?
Woo! Now that's a deep question too, because gosh, like that's heartstrings right there. Ah, I almost feel myself getting teary eyed. Like that's crazy right now. And I say that
It's a safe
because
space. It's all right. It's okay.
I'm approaching 40, and I've been in this, you know, since I've been in my late 40s, I've been in this weird, like, reflective space that really kind of started, and you can relate to this after my mom passed. Like, you know, mental breakdown to only build your mental back up, like that whole process.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of the kind of like breakdown and rebuilding mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, but also that time brought about a much needed pause for me. Honestly, it was the first time I really did pause since I was 17 years old. And in that pause, one of the things that came to me in my prayer time and devotion time was me questioning how I have showed up as a woman for my girls. Like this is something that like I thought about years ago, and it's something that started to like literally haunt me because I started thinking like, have my daughters really ever seen soft Shara? All they have seen is me on the go, grinding, traveling here, traveling there, like paying bills, cooking dinner, we over here, this activity, go, go, go. Right? Like I think about, you know, the mom who's like, oh, we're going to high tea, you know, like, we're going to have a mani petty day, right? Like, and I don't say that in a way that's like, you know, making fun of it, but I'm just saying like, those are things that I haven't, those are things in my mind that may like, you know, shallowly, superficially represent softness, but it's major, right? Because those are things I have not even had to barely have time to do that for myself, let alone like plan it for my daughter. So it's like there's a certain level of, if I'm being completely honest and transparent, certain level of regret that kind of like exists with me that feels like, man, I wish I could have been able to show both of my girls more softness, you know, that part of me. Um, but I haven't been able to, right? And so like the past year or so, I've been more intentional about how can I incorporate more of that? What does that look like? And it's a lot of me asking myself of, well, what does that mean to you? Softness may not mean going to high tea with some big hats and or doing a mani petty. Softness for me, to be honest, over the past year has been literally, I lie to you not, allowing my daughters to see me to rest. Seriously. Because I realized they have always seen me on the go.
Hmm. So let me ask you this question because I suffer from this as well. Do you feel sometimes like if you're not doing something, it's wrong? Like it be feeling
Yeah.
wrong in my
Girl,
core if I take
girl.
a day where I'm like, I ain't doing nothing. And I'll
No,
start off good for a couple hours. And then by like 2 o'clock, I'm like, I
absolutely.
must be doing something. I need to be running an errand, straightening something, cleaning out something, prepping something, doing some notes. Like I feel like if I'm not doing something,
Absolutely.
I'm failing. That's how I
Absolutely.
feel.
Right?
And it's
Right?
and it's a
Absolutely.
very innate, deep down inside thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One, like we have again, because we have seen our parents, our mothers in particular, always doing stuff from our grandmothers, you know, whether it's frying a fish on Sunday, like you said, making
Hmm.
sure the couch is covered up and plastic down so we can slip and slide, you know what I'm saying? Or whether
Or get
it's
stuck.
turn off the lights, whatever it may be. We have always seen our grandmothers to our mothers just always on the go, right? So that's when it hit me like, oh wait, that is what I've seen. Oh, let me halt. So I have suffered with that. Again, you know, I keep on bringing up my mother's transition because it was a transformational moment for me where a lot of things clicked. And for me after that, because it was a pause that I didn't choose. It was a pause that I feel like just God was like, okay, you're going to stop. You're going to kind of like, this next chapter of your life is going to look much different because you needed to be that way to survive, right? You was in survival mode. And that's one of the things that I realized that from 17 up until about 34 years of age, I was strongly in survival mode. And it looked like always feeling the need to do something. And after that, it was like, no, no.
Mhm.
So for me, when I say being soft in front of my girls mean I'm a rest, it means, oh yeah, there may be two big baskets of laundry in the basement that I know needs to be done, but here's my daughter right here, and she just wants to sit on the couch and she wants to talk about, you know, a book that she read. Okay, let's talk.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I may not get to those two baskets of laundry until next weekend. And
And
that's
it'll be
okay.
fine.
And it will be fine. And so for me, like, that's like having that choice and knowing that I have that choice, right? So I think that's one of the things that also separates us from our ancestors and our predecessors. Like, for whatever reason, well, at one point in history, they didn't have the choice. And as history moved on, they also chose not to. And
Mm-hmm.
I think when it comes to our generation and younger, we're choosing different. And you can judge me all you want, but that's just it's my choice because right now my priority is okay, how can I be more softer? And this is how I'm showing up. This is the way how I'm choosing to be softer. I'm choosing to have leisure time. Something that I know that my grandmother didn't have much of. Leisure.
Yes. Yes. And actually, that really is a great segue into what I want to talk about next, which is how are we different? Not necessarily better or worse, but how are we different as millennials and zennials than our mothers and grandmothers? And a couple of things that I thought about was, this might get a little touchy for people, but the things that we have at our disposal now that
Mm-hmm.
they didn't back then, like divorce, right? How many of our ancestors stayed
Ooh.
in situations that they could not leave because women couldn't purchase houses, they couldn't get credit, or they
Ah,
couldn't vote,
come on.
they couldn't sign a lease, they could barely get a job really that paid anything, and if they did, who was going to keep them kids?
And that
So they
wasn't that long
stayed.
ago,
Yeah,
right?
it really wasn't.
It
Not at
wasn't
all.
too long ago.
So unfortunately, they stayed in situations that were bad mentally or physically. They stayed in situations where there were outside children or loveless marriages or whatever. And, I thank God that we don't have to deal
Mm,
with that anymore. But again, I think that mimicking what we saw, some of
yeah.
us still do that,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and so that is kind of what my message is to people that may be listening. Like, we don't have to do that anymore. Fortunately or unfortunately, those before us suffered through that, so we don't have to.
Yes. Come on.
you
Come
know
on.
Also, like the workforce, like look at the jobs that so many of us have now, right? Black
Yes.
women are the most educated group of
Come
people in the
on.
country. Degrees on top of degrees. Okay, we are VPs and owners and CEOs and all kinds of things
Yes,
where
ma'am. Mm.
just a few decades ago it wasn't like that. We have the
Yes.
power to maneuver and do things that they could not do.
Yes.
you
Yes.
know and unfortunately, I think that even with all the financial independence and all the education that we have, it goes back to what I was saying about certain things being embedded in our DNA, that we've
Yeah.
acquired all of these things, but
Mm-hmm.
somewhere in here and in here, we're still stuck in that.
Mm-hmm.
I can't afford to live the soft life. I have to do. I have to stay. I have to take care of everybody. I have to do all of these things. And we need to learn to let go.
Yeah.
Easier
Yeah.
said than done, though.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think yes to all those things, right? So giving honor to the ones who came before us who had to carry so much and who didn't have the privilege of choice, as well as all of the opportunities because they were fighting against systems and structures that was intended to keep them down, right? It wasn't by accident, intended to keep them down.
Mm-hmm.
But with us with millennials, I really do, and because I really, when we talk about, when we look at the timeline and we kind of looked at when things started to shift, you have to give credit to the millennial generation, right? That
Mm-hmm.
time frame, one of women who really started to come out the box and shine and start to think about, okay, what do I need to do for myself in a way that does not center men? So that's one
Mm-hmm.
thing. And another thing is our level of awareness has changed. So first and foremost, it grinds my gears when I hear people say, we're not our ancestors. Oh my God, I cringe every time because I think you're dishonoring the people who came before you, right? But
Mm-hmm.
part of that, again, right, the conundrum is, two multiple things can be true at the same time. So yes, it is true. We are not our ancestors in the way that our level of really like dissecting things and kind of like taking ourselves out again, because we have the luxury of being able to take ourselves out to see the big picture and how we are operating in systems. Our ancestors and the people who came before us were not able to do that, right? Think about like those times. Again, me existing in survival mode from about 17 to about, early 30s. I didn't have the luxury, I didn't have the time to sit back and think about, okay, what's really going on here, right? A lot more of us now as millennials are able to do that. What's really going on here, right? And examine that. Partially also because a lot of people in our generation are taking notice of what does it mean to be a full woman outside of all the labels society chooses to put on us, including strong Black woman, because that's not the only label
That.
society put us on, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
other, right? There, when we think about, there's a lot of strong Black woman is considered a trope, right? It's something that is, you know, part, you could say it's DNA, but it's a social construct.
Yeah, I don't find it
And
as a compliment. I don't.
yeah, no, it's a social construct that is, they, some people, and oh, whew, girl, let's talk. Because a black man would try, black man, we love you, right? Because, and you said that when you said compliment, it was a trigger because for some reason, Black men often say that as if it's a compliment. Don't, don't call me, don't. Mm-mm. Okay. So that's one of the things that gets on my nerve. Like Black men will often say, "Oh, you're a strong Black woman," as if that I'm supposed to be like, "Thank you." No, don't call me a strong Black woman. I don't want to be a strong Black woman. Like, and first of all, like when I think of a strong Black woman, I think of somebody who just looks like just worn out, stressed out. Like, don't call me that. Like,
Yes.
it's like the new thing where people are like Black women or women in general don't like to be called like, oh, you the big dog, like you got all the money. Like, don't say that because I don't want to be viewed
Mm-hmm.
as that. Like, view me as soft and broke. How about that? Because
Yes.
maybe,
Please
because
and thank
maybe
you.
Please and thank you. Because maybe in your mind, that will make you perceive me as someone who's deserving to be supported in a way
Mm-hmm.
that you wouldn't see me as if you have in your mind that I'm such a strong Black woman. No, I'm not strong, honey. Hold me up.
Mm-hmm.
Support me.
Mm-hmm.
Give me $5. Give me $1. Like something. You know what I'm saying? So
Yes.
it's like, I think also that, like, when we think about our generation, again, connecting it back to the mental health, right? We know that a lot more Black people in general and really Black women are tapping into what does it mean to be mentally healthy, right? Do I need to get a therapist? Do I need to be in a support group? Do I need to talk
Mm-hmm.
to somebody at the church? And taking that seriously. And our generation, I believe, would have to be like one of the first generation that's actually naming stuff like trauma, right? And putting a
Mm-hmm.
label to it, burnout, You know what I'm saying? My
Yes.
11-year old, right? She talks about, hey mom, I'm feeling a little overstimulated. Yes, queen, name it,
Yes.
right? So
And we
it's just
weren't even
like,
using the phrase overstimulated, what, like 8, 9 years ago? We weren't even using that phrase.
and now I have my 11-year-old telling me, but yes. So that's just to prove that like our generation and the younger generation have no problem with naming it. One, well, let's
Hmm.
start back. Recognizing it, recognizing. Wait a minute, something's going on with me. I'm a little dysregulated. But then also starting to question, what does this mean? But then also saying, you know what, do I need some additional support, right? We still struggle with that, but more of us are questioning, do I need some additional support here? And then
Hmm.
telling other people, you know what, I am a little bit dysregulated right now. I am a little bit overstimulated. I need a moment. And if you don't tell nobody, you give yourself that moment. So I think that is something that also, like that level of awareness, of recognizing it when yourself, but also just knowing like I have the power to shift it. I have the power because I'm not completely tied to certain systems that I have to 100% rely on. So I have a little bit more breathing room to make
Hmm.
some
You don't have to
shifts.
just sit in that feeling or
Right,
sit in
right.
that
I can
situation.
Correct. Correct.
Hmm.
Right. And so when we think about previous generations and how they had to navigate, like you said, not being able to have full rights, having to navigate segregation, having to navigate, you know, economic turmoil, right? We still deal with those issues. But now we also know that there are certain choices that we have that our previous generations did not have.
Hmm. We have options.
Mm-hmm.
Hallelujah.
Mm-hmm.
Hallelujah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny you say that. I was just at dinner with one of my girlfriends about a week or so ago, and I was telling her, I was like, I don't feel right. Like, I'm don't feel like myself at work. I just feel like a step behind on everything. Like everything just hadn't been together. And she's like, "Well, maybe you need to just take a little break. Like just like a little day trip or something, or a little overnight thing somewhere where you can just be at peace and just chill out and reset
Mm-hmm.
yourself." And I think that being able to have those open conversations like that is also very important. And I think more of us are doing that now, and being open and honest about how we feel and not feeling guilty about saying burnout, overstimulated,
Mm-hmm.
stressed, overworked, all of those things, and we feel comfortable saying it. And, our friends, our real friends now, aren't judging us for it because we're all
Correct.
kind of in the same boat,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think that's so important. Um, Now another thing which kind of ties into this as well. I love how this is just flowing together. Um, a lot of us uh kind of struggle with the savior complex, right? With the whole, kind of not knowing when to rest, not knowing
Oh,
how to rest, not believing that we can rest because, like you said, well, if I don't do it, no one else is going to do it. And if I don't do it, it's not going to be done right. And what are people going to think of me if I don't do these things? And it's like, everybody talks about setting boundaries. We sometimes need to set boundaries for ourselves.
yes.
Like you said, that basket of laundry gonna be there. Ain't nobody gonna die if it don't get folded tomorrow. They're not. It's okay. Like them babies can eat nuggets tonight. It is okay.
And it's okay. No, correct.
Yes, and they would probably prefer the nuggets anyway. You know, they can do that. You don't have to walk the dog 2 miles tonight. He can do a
Yes.
half a mile, and
It's
y'all can
okay.
come on back if you need to rest. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes.
Um, and we need to not only do those things, but this is the part that I need to learn and work on. Not feel
Mm,
guilty when I do
yeah.
them. So I've
Yeah.
done the work to do the things, but then I feel guilty afterwards. So now I'm laying in bed like, I really should have worked on that so and so.
Ugh.
Ugh, I really should have. I really should have did this, and I really should have did that. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I'm only halfway there.
And you're going to get there, because here's the thing. It's when it comes to unlearning, it is a long process. It is a long process. And I think that, our generation of millennials are the first generation where we are unlearning a lot of
Hmm.
stuff that the women before us were socialized to do, to be, and how to show up as a woman in the world. And we are unlearning all of that, like just blowing it up. Like it don't have to be that way. Right. And so a lot of times it's, default. We exist, we show up in the world, we show up in our relationships, and we show up by default. Again, how have we seen this? We've seen our grandparents, our mother be this way, and you know what? We're doing it this way too because by default, this is how we're supposed to be.
Hmm.
So to unlearn how you're supposed to be and to sit and reimagine what you could be so that you could feel like I am the fullest, most authentic version of myself outside of what, previous generations may have said I should have been or society. That takes a long time. And even if step by step, day by day, you choose one way to show up differently, and by the end of the day, you still feel guilty, guess what? That day is still an accomplishment. And I think about, what is that? I think her name is it Trisha Hershey? She's the one who came up. She wrote the book first, and then she developed an entire movement, the Rest is Resistance
Mm.
movement. It started out as a book, and then it took off on social media. And then she had this whole cohort of women who were, black women were meditating. We ain't never do no meditating. You know what I'm saying? Stuff that we didn't never do before. Because, child, if you don't go over there on that plastic couch and pray, you know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Like that was our previous generations, but now it's like, no, we showing up in different ways. We meditating.
Yes, I
We're,
love a good meditation session.
come
I love
on.
it.
Like I'm gonna cross my legs and sit on somebody's floor and I'm just gonna sit in silence. And that is okay. Right.
Hmm.
And so she came up with this whole resistance movement. And I thought it was so powerful, one, because black women need to rest. We know that. But because it really does counteract everything that is said about how black women are supposed to be in society, which is, as you mentioned earlier, we're always supposed to be producing. And this movement is saying, no, the hell we not.
Hmm.
And we don't have to. And guess what? We are still powerful women, even if we're not producing 100% of the time. Even if
Hmm.
we're just sitting in our womanhood, which a lot of times other cultures, white women in particular, are able to do that in ways that we aren't. Even if we're just sitting in our womanhood, guess what? We're still powerful. And that
Exactly.
is
Because I
okay.
think, yes, because I think that we are learning now that there is power in picking and choosing our battles
Come on.
and picking and choosing what things that, what we want to do and how we want to do them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. So,
And if it doesn't
after
serve
the
us,
election, after the
we don't have
election,
to.
right? Remember that. What did
Listen.
black women say? Black women said, we're going to put on our boots and we're going to be
Hmm.
out here line dancing because we tried to tell y'all. We tried to
Listen, let me
tell
tell you
y'all, do
something.
not.
The way I'm out here going to dinners and concerts and minding my black ass business, okay? Because I don't have time. I don't have time. I watch the news enough just to know what's going on. Woke up on a Saturday morning and found out we was at war. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, so let me head to Trader Joe's. Like I can't. I can't be
I'm
bothered.
telling you. Black women said we out here line dancing because we have, for generation after generation, have tried to tell y'all. And like you said, often we are the ones who comes to save the day. And black women
Mhm.
are, talk about a choice. Talk, rest is resistance was a movement that started, I think, almost, now it's probably almost been 10 years after this last election, and that the boots on the ground movement where black women are saying, I know, get, find somebody else to do it. I
Mhm.
love it. I love it. I love it because I also think that the way that society demeans us and who we are and what we bring to the table and how powerful we are, but also depends on us, right? So you're degrading us on one end, but then you also depend on us, right?
Mhm.
That is so grotesque, but it's also just reflective of how we were exploited from generation to generation, starting with slavery up until now. Black women have been exploited in that way where you can degrade us, yet and still you're highly dependent on us.
Exactly. Yeah, I think for so many years, what we have to offer, people didn't realize, or society didn't realize, that you have to earn this. It's not just given. And I think that for so many years, because of who we are, it's
Yeah.
just been given.
Yeah.
They know they can depend on it. It's always there. You know, the black mamas is going to come in and save the day
Mm-hmm.
again. And now we're like, nah, you're going to have to do some work for this. You're going to have to earn it. We're not just giving it out for free anymore.
Yeah.
So I definitely agree with everything that you're saying. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about was what is the cost of being strong? What is the price that we pay for playing into this narrative? You know, um, I would venture to say number one is our health. So many black women neglect their health because they're so busy caring for others. Whether it's not going to the doctor or not eating properly, or all of the things. You done took everybody else to the doctor, right? You
Yeah.
caring for everybody else, but when you been?
Yeah.
A month of Sundays, as my mother would say. And I mean, and unfortunately, that was my mom.
Mm.
My mom was so concerned about everybody else until, when I got older and I started had to be like, ma'am, chop chop. Like we going to this doctor over
Mm.
here. You know what I mean? And I had to kind of force her to do those things. And, unfortunately some things we found out it was kind of too late at that point. But you know, that is a very high cost that I think that we pay for
Mm.
playing into this narrative.
Whew. Um, Pay attention to the rate of heart attacks in black women, hypertension,
Mm-hmm.
chronic illness.
Mm-hmm.
We surpass every other demographic. And I think that itself speaks to the cost physically, right? I think about more superficial things also. Like I was in, I was somewhere recently and the conversation was me and another black woman and like five black men who made a comment. Oh, after a certain age, black women just let themselves go. Excuse me?
No, he
Right?
didn't.
Yeah.
Oh no.
So superficially, maybe because we don't have the luxury to go to the gym as often as we want to, or take, like you said, take care of ourselves because no one is doing that for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So superficially, that could be a cost as well. Letting ourselves go because we have to, because we are always in the mode and the posture to care for others before we care for ourselves. Um, I think emotionally, I think that, there's a whole study, psychologists and sociologists who study racial issues. There's a whole study called, I think it's like literally called the Black Woman Schema. And it talks about how Black women are more prone to suppress their feelings than any other demographic of women, and suppress it in a way that appears like some of these may sound familiar. I got it. Don't worry about it.
Ooh,
Everything's okay, right? Fine. Fine. How you doing? Fine.
listen,
Right?
if I had a
But
dollar for every time I said, "Oh, I'm good,"
I'm good is one,
hmm
right?
listen,
There's a
for those of
whole
y'all out there
study about
watching and listening, I don't be good. I don't be good. Like
I'll be
I'm gonna
good
say
either.
40% of the time, I do not be good, but I'm gonna tell you I'm good. It's just what I
Right.
do,
And
and
they
I have
say
to
that
unlearn that behavior. I'm not perfect. I have to unlearn that.
again, it's going to take time, right? You have to earn. We all have to do that. Black women are more prone to say I'm good because we have always had to be good,
Hmm
right? So when we talk about like what it takes to unlearn, what does it take to unlearn? To start answering honestly, you know what? Today's a day. Anyway, you ain't have to tell all your business, but today's a day, right? So what would it look like to show up authentically in how you feel to counteract like just being in default strong, air quote, right? So I think it shows up, I think spiritually, just downtrodden, right? And that's why Black women just are so oppressed, because it is just this continual feeling of being downtrodden and not having the level of support that we need. And even if some of us have that support, as you mentioned earlier, some of us do not even tap into that. Why? Because the cost of all of this is that we then develop these trauma responses, in which now this is how I respond to even receiving help, is that
hmm
someone has given me an olive branch, and guess what? I still got it. Because I've existed in this mode for so long, part of me don't even know how to open up to that. How does that
hmm
even look to let go? How does it even look to say, oh, you can help me with that? Because this has become so much part of my identity, I only know how to exist this way. It's a trauma response. It's a defense mechanism to not allow somebody in to help at this point.
hmm
That's an additional cost.
Yeah. I mean, and even, when you talk about stress and mental health and how that can actually tie back to neglecting yourself physically, you
Mhm.
know, stress is the underlying cause of so many conditions, right? It can cause conditions, or if you have something, stress can make it worse,
Yeah.
and we worry and overthink about so many things, that when you really sit back and think about it, aren't really that important, and
Yes.
again, we have to, like you said, learn how to let go, learn how to tap into our villages that are around
Mhm.
us, and if we don't have a village, create one. Find other
Yes.
people like you, whether it be, other moms, other parents, neighbors, friends, co-workers, whatever, and build community. You know, like I said, I have a sweatshirt that I just recently bought that says Auntie on it, right? I have, if you count all of my godchildren and nieces and nephews, it's about 20 of them. Okay.
Okay. Deep, deep.
I am Andre, right? And so even though I have my own stuff going on, I
Hmm.
enjoy being able to be a part of the villages where, you know, Andre can do days, mama
Yeah.
got to work late, I can go pick him up. It's fine. Do I
Mhm.
need to DoorDash some food to the house? I can do that. You know
Yes.
what I mean? I'll take them to the birthday party this weekend so you can get a couple hours to
Oh.
yourself. You know, I enjoy doing that because
Mm.
I had to realize that, even though I don't have children, but those are the things that people did for me when I've been sick. Like I remember when I had COVID, one of my homegirls, she just door dashed a bunch of groceries to my house. You know, when I was
Yes.
dealing with the loss of my dad very recently,
Mhm.
my homegirls was there, like on a dime, like no questions asked. Girl, what do you need? A ride, food, sit with you. We can talk, or we can talk about nothing. It don't matter, you
Mm.
know. Just taking me out if I needed to go somewhere. We can drink or not drink. We can drink a lot. We can drink a little bit. Like whatever it is you want to do. You know, do you need me to pray with you? Do you need me to pray for you? What do you need? And so
Yes.
I really had to again unlearn. I got to do everything by myself and allow people in. And once I started doing that, the stress became a little bit less. And the more I
Hmm.
realized, that thing that I'd be so worried about really ain't even that deep, and it kind of goes back to, um, it freed up time for me to do the things that I loved. I haven't
Mm.
podcasted in like 2 years. I just came back.
Wow.
And so when I learned to delegate and divvy some things out and let some things go, I got back to what I love. And now that's an outlet for me. This is my passion. It's what I like to do. And so it de-stresses me when I can do this. You know what I mean? So I think it's important, like you said, to not just be defined by I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm an employee, I am, a daughter. Yes, you are all of those things, but you can also be, I don't know, sis, a seamstress, a
Yeah.
hiker, a
Yeah.
vlogger, whatever it is you want to do, a
Right.
gamer,
Right.
whatever.
Right. Right. What makes your like what sets your soul on fire? Like that sounds so cliche, but it's so true, right? And it makes me think of like sometimes ask an older woman, right? A woman who may be in her late 50s or 60s, like, what do you enjoy doing? Sometimes you'll find like it is hard for them to answer that question
Hmm.
because they've never again, talk about the privilege of leisure. They never had the opportunity to really think about, well, what is it that I enjoy? Right. So I think, what you have said is just so beautifully said. Like the moment called for you to take a step back, and that's fine. It demanded it, and that's fine. But now look at you back into podcasting, and thank God because you have a great podcast show.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Um, so, before we check out of here, if you had to leave a couple of gems for the women that are listening, that you would want them to take away from anything that we talked about in this episode and to carry with them, what would it be?
So, as Jure said, I was a podcaster with my homegirl Shakina, who is also a friend of Jure's too. And our podcast was called Black Woman Reborn, and we were very intentional about that name. Um, related to a lot of what we talked about this evening. And I think what I want people to sit with is what does it mean for you to be reborn, in relation to how do you show up differently from ways that haven't served you in the past? And what would that look like? And then I want you to sit and journal about it, maybe. What hasn't served me in the past and how I have shown up in the world for myself, for the people around me, and how could I possibly write a different story? What would my personal rebirth look like? What would it look like if I give myself permission to not be strong? What would it look like if I gave myself permission to be softer and my identity not be tied to anything else but being a woman? Like you said, not a mom all the time, not a wife, not a sister, but just being a woman and just existing. and being a human being and not a human doing, but just being a human being, what would it look like for you to give yourself permission to do that? So that's what I want to leave with. The women who hold on to the strong black woman trope as if it is an honor and an award. It's both. Conundrum, remember the word. Okay. Master's degree got me here, y'all. But also know that it is also burdensome and sometimes it doesn't serve you in a way that is for your best interest. So that's what I will leave people with.
Okay. And the one thing that I would like for people to take away is take the phrase strong black woman, let's take it back and let's repurpose it and make that be whatever it is for you. It doesn't have to be this negative thing. It is, I am a strong black woman who, embraces her softness. I'm a strong black woman who embraces, self-care or whatever the case may be. Let's take it back and let's own that and make it work for us, and like you said in the beginning, having time to yourself and taking care of yourself doesn't always mean going to a spa or, getting a manicure or, doing something wild and crazy like that or super duper expensive. It could be taking a book and going to the park and sitting by yourself. It could be, going to a restaurant by yourself and treating yourself to a nice meal. I've done that. Listen, going out to a restaurant by yourself is tea, honey. I love doing it. Okay. It is everything. You know, last summer, all my friends looked at me like I was crazy because I was like, I got to get out of DC and I want to go and be alone with some mountains and some trees. And they was looking at me like, girl, what? That ain't even you. And I went down to Virginia and I booked a tiny cabin by myself for 3 days. It was just me and a dog. And I journaled, I read my Bible, I went on hikes. I tried to start a fire and cook outside. It ain't really work, but that's another story for another day. But I say all that to say I did something out of the norm and now I love it. I love solo travel. Send me anywhere by myself. I love girl trips and I love vacations and all of that, but that is the thing probably outside of podcasting that resets me, and I think that that does make me strong to know that I can do that. I have the choice to do that. And it makes me feel good and I'm going to do it and it don't matter what anybody else says. And I'm excited that I have the privilege to do that in a way that those before me couldn't really do, so that's my last little 2 cents that I wanted to say. But Shara, I just want to thank you so much for being my guest today and coming on the show. It was such a pleasure to have you. If you want to, share more about your coaching business and things like that, and where people can find you if they like to take advantage of your services, I would really appreciate it.
Sure. So I do have a website, www.gatewaystogreatness.com. That is my business website. Again, I do facilitation, I do group coaching and individual coaching specifically, intentionally for Black women, both in group setting and individualized. I also I do a lot of speaking too, especially recently, specifically about topics around racial justice and racial equity. So I am for hire when it comes to that. But again, you can find me on my website. And you can also Instagram Gateways to Greatness as well is my Instagram business page. So those are two ways you can contact me.
Perfect. You guys, please support my girl. Let's support everybody's businesses and things like that. She is great at what she does. I promise you, you will not be sorry. So again, thank you so much for coming, and don't be a stranger. I definitely plan on having you back. Maybe I'll bring you and Shakina back, and we'll do a
I
little,
would love that.
you know,
Oh my God. Let's do
we'll
it.
have a little conversation. We'll figure out something good to talk about. Maybe next time we won't do such a heavy topic. We'll do something more fun.
Yes. Girl, because look, I told you that had me teared up almost talking. It has been a time with you. So I thank you so much for having me. Thank you for being a beautiful, amazing, and powerful Black woman who shows up so beautifully to everyone around you since the moment I met you, since like literally it's been 10 years. I know that because I've been at that organization for 10 years and you
Yes.
were one of the first people I met, and you've always been such a powerhouse, and I really do appreciate how you show up and exist in your relationships with other Black women. So thank you, Jure, for having me and for just being who you are.
Thank you so much. And to everybody else, thank you for tuning in to this episode. I appreciate you guys sticking with me and all of the love and support that you've given the Melanin 360 podcast since its inception and since I've been back in the game. I love hearing from you all. So please hit me up on the website, www.melanin-360.com. You can also find me on Instagram at the Melanin 360 podcast and on TikTok at underscore Melanin 360 and interact with me there. Send me DMs, all that good stuff. And make sure that you tune in wherever you find your podcast and on the YouTube channel. So, with that being said, I'll see y'all next episode. Peace.
Paving this shit crank.